Hello, Formula One fans, and welcome back to F1 in Focus. We are the only Formula One podcast where a Dutchie and an Englishman can very much get along in the world of Formula One, while having several discussions, race recaps, and discussing racing food and beverages. On show number 6, we are doing some experiments with our Between Races show, and we've been away for a while, so maybe we've got to talk about that as well. My name is John, and with me is my dear friend, of course, the man with the best hair in the biz. It's none other than James Hazel.
Hello, how are you doing?
Welcome back, my friend. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
it has been a little while. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's not only your fault. We had
Yeah.
some unfortunate circumstances, which we won't go into much details. And of course, we had a little bit of a issue with scheduling our podcast around races that take place very late.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we gotta figure that out for the new season. For everyone tuning in, retuning in for the 6th episode or tuning in live, we are actually we've decided that it's a good idea to take the next couple of weeks to test some formats of this show, see how things go, bring in some new things. So if you're listening to this, let us know what you think. If you think things hit or don't hit or are very fun to do, let us know so we can tune the show. So next season, because we only have like 2 races left now, so next season we can actually hit the ground running, keep coming up with far more frequent content, and of course get a steady format going.
Yep.
Anything to add there, James?
Not really. I mean, if anyone's got any ideas, just feel free to post them in the comment section or wherever you're listening and let us know what you think. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Talking about the comment section and whenever you're listening, if you are one of the, well, actually not too little people listening to the show before, if you still want to come back, of course, after our hiatus, drop us a little 5-star review wherever you're listening or share it with your friends. We are not paid to do this. We are, of course, doing this with every inch of energy we have left at this stage of the game. And we can very much appreciate it. It means the world to us. James.
Yes.
Brazil has been, Max became world champion. We've had some exciting races, but like I said, like we said in the pre-show, it actually doesn't do much good talking about the race that's been a week ago when we actually produced this show or published this show.
Yeah. It wasn't the most eventful race either, anyway, really. So
I said, yeah, Mexico wasn't
Mexico,
too bad.
yeah.
Mexico wasn't. It was a snooze fest, James.
It was a bit, yeah.
And there's plenty of things to say about it, but 15-second win by Max, that was a snooze fest.
Yeah, I mean, watching it live, it looked like it could have been interesting at the start of like that first stint when Lewis was kind of hanging on different tires, but then you find out after the race that Max was just kind of coasting and just trying to extend his stint as long as he could and make those soft tires go as far as he could. And then by the time both drivers had done their only stop of the race, like the gap was just insane. And Mercedes just like praying that his tires drop off, and it just never happened.
No, just driving consistently 122s.
I don't know why they expect that anymore, because I think we know now that, I mean, if Mercedes don't know it by now, they never will. And that is that the Red Bulls are just phenomenal at tyre management and tyre wear, it seems, especially when you compare them to something like the Ferrari that just chews through tyres like God knows what.
Yeah, that's a bit of an off point for Ferrari this season. One thing I wanted to discuss quickly about before we start on trial format in a bit, is why would you start a Mercedes on mediums? That leaves you no other options than to go to hards, and basically it gives you a little chance to actually overtake Max at the start.
I'm in two minds about this, because I think if Mercedes had just matched the Red Bull strategy, they weren't going to beat them on that. I think maybe what they were hoping for was a safety car or something. Because if you're on the medium tires and you can extend your stint further, then that gives you like a bigger window for a safety car or some sort of incident to occur.
Why not do it with one car then?
Well, yeah, I mean, they could have split the strategy. That probably would have been the better idea, really. But I think if Mercedes if all they ever do is match what Red Bull are doing, they're never going to beat Red Bull in a straight fight. They're always going to have to rely on a Red Bull not finishing the race to beat it, I think.
I guess that's fair.
Especially Max's car anyway, or Max himself. But if you try and do something different with the strategy, I guess you're just creating, or you're putting yourself in a position to take advantage of potential opportunities that might crop up, I suppose.
My issue here is that if you start on the mediums, right?
Yeah.
Softs won't last.
No.
Basically, you are out of options. You only have one option left,
Yeah,
or two options. You could go three stopper, but that doesn't seem like a valid strategy. So you could go to hard. That's it. Yeah. And if you start with the softs, that leaves you with multiple options. Either go hard and go long, or go medium, and again back to soft, for example, right? It sort of felt like they gave up a little bit. And when Lewis started chasing Max, you said this is done deal because, well, the Max is just driving away, just cruising. Yeah. I was like, no, his tires probably will fall off. But yeah, he took 25 laps over 122s constantly, or something like a metronome. So yeah.
I suppose they could have tried to go more aggressive. They could have either like mediums onto two sets of softs and do a two-stop, or try and drag the mediums out.
You saw what Ricciardo did with softs in the end, so
exactly, like drag it out and then go softs at the end. But then you're relying on the Mercedes to be able to overtake. And one different, like everyone's comparing to what Ricciardo did, but Ricciardo was in
slamming off people.
I mean, well, yeah, he's either overtaking them or he's just battering them off the road. But he's in the fourth fastest car, isn't he? You've got Red Bull clearly the fastest, Mercedes are maybe the second fastest car now, Ferrari third or second. Those two are kind of interchangeable depending on the circuit. And then McLaren are generally the fourth fastest car, maybe sometimes. That's a competition with Alpine, depending on the circuit as well. And he was like down in 13th place when he put the softs on, and he was overtaking like a Haas and an Alpine and Alfa Romeos and stuff they're kind of easy pickings for McLaren, really, considering, especially when you've got tyre advantage like that. And what I'm getting at really is Mercedes wouldn't have that luxury if they did a similar strategy, because they'd be fighting with cars that are much closer, like within their same sort of window, if that makes sense, of like speed, or maybe not top speed, but overall lap time. So it would make overtaking more difficult. So I think they were just playing entirely on track position, because where they were pretty strong was that second sector and part of the third sector. So they could eke out enough of a lead there so that by the time they got to the start-finish straight, which is a hell of a straight that the Mercedes would get mugged on if anyone was close to them, because they were so fast in the other sectors, they had enough of an advantage, or held, an opposing driver, closing in driver off, to not allow them to get DRS and overtake them. So track advantage was working for them.
You could say if you started on Reds, you might have overtaken Max, although he has a terrific start.
You did,
and then you would definitely have track advantage, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe one of them could have overtaken him on the start. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, you're right. Also, it's like hindsight. In hindsight, everything's easy, right?
Exactly. I think Mercedes did the right thing, to be honest. I saw Binotto had said something about Mercedes have like lost 2 races through picking the wrong strategy, and it was kind of.
I think Binotto is not the one to talk about losing races
no, and he's
strategy.
He's kind of comparing what Ferrari doing with what Mercedes are doing. But first of all, I don't think his statement is correct, and second of all, I don't think him of all people should be making those sorts of comparisons when you look at how Ferrari have performed earlier on in the season. But yeah,
I think that's F1 politics for you. Talking about cheating while your team was also on the list. But hey,
oh yeah,
talking to you, Zach Moore, talking to you, Binotto. But hey,
Yeah.
Let's not go into that. Or maybe we shall, because it is time for our new test format. So we always had an issue, and like if we have to record late and the race is already done, or what do we do if there's a 2 week hiatus between races? So we want to talk. Let's talk about how we're going to do this. Is we each take a topic, or two topics actually. We each take two topics. You name a word, and we discuss about 5-10 minutes. See how far we get. See if this leads to an Englishman and a Dutchman actually getting angry at each other, or still being very much friendly with each other. Because there's a lot of things happening, and we figured out we can't fit this all in a 60-minute podcast, which ends up being 90 minutes, which ends up having to cut it in pieces. So let's see if this works better. Let us know what you think. But James, what would be your first topic today to mention?
I want to talk about wet tires.
There aren't any. Next topic.
Full wets. Like, what is the point of them, and what can we do? Oh, well, not us personally, but what can the sport do to make wet tires work? Because they're so redundant. Like, we don't start a race when wet tires are suitable, and by the time we get to a point where we can race, we're already onto intermediates. So we don't use wet tires, or we don't see wet tires on the track. And when you look, which race was it? It was Suzuka, wasn't it? When Christian Horner even said, like, even when the track's completely soaking wet, the wet tire is still not worth taking because it is so much slower than like tiptoeing around on intermediates. So Formula One needs to come up with a way of making maybe not like torrential downpour, typhoon, like circuit flooded kind of situations work, but just a wet track.
Yes, I think everyone wants to see just the wets being useful, right? I have to admit that there's one thing there, though. There's one thing which we can't really blame anyone. So there are no practice sessions, there are no free tire sessions properly anymore, and because of the weekends being extended and there's being so many races, so it's not that Pirelli can test for 4 weeks in a row on all kinds of different surfaces. And when they do have a tire test and it starts to rain, they either didn't bring the rain tires or it is so dangerous that it's actually not allowed to do so. So those separate test days, which we will get after the season ends in Abu Dhabi, right? For example, these are far too few. So the tires for next season have to be ready, and you get one moment to test it later on.
Yeah.
And if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. And I think that's happened with Pirelli. You got all kinds of. We see a lot of Formula One teams going into a wind tunnel, getting a part done, looks all good, and then you test it and it's rubbish. The biggest advantage for Formula One team is they can try again next week. Disadvantage for Pirelli is they can try again next year.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue. And I think Max Verstappen, for example, said, I wanted to help. If you need me to test it somewhere and we can find a place to do it, I'll be happy to help, because I think all the drivers want it, all the audience wants it, everyone wants it, but Pirelli as well. I just think they hardly test under these circumstances, so it's really hard to create a great tire to do so, especially in a year where ground effect has been introduced. Of course, it's been far more important in the rain we've seen with the spray, for example.
Yeah,
far more expressive than we've ever thought. And I think Pirelli was one of those players that was surprised by it. And also, we've had a tremendous amount of rain races this year, which it's been a while since we have those amounts of races as well, right?
Yeah, more than usual, it feels like, yeah. Do you think I mean there's very few gaps to do this, but like some sort of in-season testing then? Maybe like, I mean, I know that they make use of there's some free practice sessions that they use, don't they? They used one recently.
2 in a row from the Americas and Japan.
Yeah, well, Japan's got cancelled, didn't it, because of the rain, because they brought dry tires.
Yeah, but the 2 races after. So we got America and we got Mexico, where they both did it, actually.
Yeah.
And both practice sessions, if you review it, it doesn't make any sense, because you get put on tires, and those tires aren't even marked, so Pirelli knows which kind of tires you're on.
Yeah.
And they provide feedback. You got a program to run, which is a good way of doing it, right? But it makes a weekend. I don't mind one free practice less for the setups. We've seen that can actually lead to some results. As Ferrari, for example, not participating well, that's definitely an option. But why not get a super license point system in for test drivers where they get a car from this year, for example, to be used, get them to drive a week on a wet track.
I suppose they have to be
something like that.
A little bit careful with that. I mean, it's more difficult this year, I suppose, because this is the first year of new regulations. So using a previous car would like be completely pointless. But I suppose from next year, because what I mean is like if you use the current year's car, teams would just try and sneak stuff on there and use it for testing. You know, like I don't know, a different front wing or some other like parts or something, just to get some extra mileage out of something and test it, which obviously they don't want to be allowing unless every team is running a car at this whatever these sessions are. But going forwards after this year, you could always just say, well, we use last year's car.
Exactly, and I think
you can't have any of this year's parts on it. It can only be last year's parts. But then, yeah, there must be a way to do it. There must be.
Yeah, but not by the current teams and not by the current standards, I think. And I think it's easy to blame Pirelli, but it's like you have to do something you think you've done well, but once it gets put into practice, it has to be right. And you can't really change it anymore as well. So
no. And I suppose once you start talking about testing, the teams are their own problem on this because they push boundaries. That's what they do. So, like I said, to try and test things and gain an advantage through a tire test and using it more like a car test than a tire test. So I suppose that's why this doesn't really happen at the moment, because it's a hard thing to police, maybe. Because I suppose, like back in the day, like I mean, thinking back to like Michael Schumacher's era, if he wasn't at a race weekend, he was just constantly doing laps around Ferrari's test track.
But they got unlimited test days by then. They could just go out.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I mean, I can understand why you don't do that now, because there's a lot of teams that, I mean, is there any team that has a personal track other than Ferrari? I don't think there is. I think, was it Red Bull or one of the other teams were wanting to build one?
Probably Red Bull wants to build everything these days. So
maybe they don't. I don't think they have one yet, or maybe they do, and it's a recent thing. But I remember there was another team wanting to build it. But Ferrari, obviously, the factory has a circuit in its back garden, effectively. So
yeah, but testing you can't test unlimited anymore as well.
No,
it's all with budget caps and stuff. So
this is why they can't do it, because some teams like Ferrari, they just have a circuit. They can just go out the back and test something, literally build it on a car and take it out. A team like Mercedes or Red Bull, a top team, they would have to like book a session at a circuit somewhere.
I'm pretty sure they can both rent a Silverstone for a day or so.
Yeah, but you've still got to kind of make that booking, set the time aside, travel there to it. That's what I mean is when you compare it to Ferrari, it's literally stick something on the car, drive it out the garage, and you're on a track. Whilst any other team would have to transport car and parts and team members and all the rest of it to wherever they're going to test. So. But anyway, sorry, I kind of ranted on about that, and it's all for nothing because it's never going to happen. But I suppose this is why.
Summarize, I think it's important that it's crap. Yeah. It is important that I don't think we can actually blame Pirelli too much, because this is definitely something of Formula One itself, by pushing in so many races in a year in such a tight schedule that there's just no room to do anything if you fail the first time.
It leaves no opportunity for anyone to do anything, even if Formula One and the teams all agreed that they wanted to do some sort of, like 3 or 4 in-season test sessions that they can all do, similar to like Barcelona at the start of the season, where rather than have a race, you have a test weekend. There's just no space for that in the calendar, because the entire kind of active Formula One season and beyond, really, because we go into November now, which we never used to do. Like it's all
just finished almost by December now, right?
Yeah,
Just putting it out there.
it's just all taken up with race weekends now. The only gap you've got is the summer break, and the whole point of the summer break is to let people go home and decompress and unwind and actually spend some time with their families rather than traveling around the world all
They
year.
can't even do anything there. So
Yeah, exactly. Factories are closed. So, well, not for the whole break, are they? They have to close for, I think it's 1 or
except
2.
catering, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everyone could still show up for their free meal.
Oh, shall we not go there too much?
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, so you can't do testing. I guess that's why they use the free practice sessions for sort of testing, but it doesn't really work in that all they're doing is testing for next year. And they're maybe not able to do enough testing for next year because, I mean, certainly if you look at this year, the wet tyres are not suitable.
Oh, they're not.
So
They're definitely not. Let's hope we can have better wet tires next year.
yeah,
James, I don't know which to pick, mate. There's so much I want to discuss, but we have to pick a topic.
yeah.
So the maybe boring topic could be Max Verstappen, world champion, Red Bull winning the world title.
Yeah.
Of course, Max winning the 14th win in a season now needs to have 2 more wins to actually also percentage-wise have the most wins in a season.
Does he
But
beat it or does he tie it?
no, 13 was the win. 13 was the
Yeah.
record.
No,
So
but I
now
mean,
he beat the record.
if he gets the 2 more wins, does he?
Then he beats it, yeah,
He
on
beats the
percentage as well.
percentage.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be impressive if he does get that. Because
Yeah.
I feel like the wins in a season. I mean, even Max talks it down a little bit. Really, like his engineer brings it up, and Christian Horner brings it up, but Max, I think he maybe he's a bit more into his history and looking more at like the fact that there are more races. I mean, one thing that you could say is that he got his 13th win on his 19th race, which matches what Vettel did.
Yeah.
He won
13 and 19
13 out of
season,
19,
yeah.
so he's matched what Vettel did.
But nevertheless, record or not, it's an impressive feat, right?
It's massively impressive, yeah.
And I think he's proven this year that he's evolved in every single area. More mature. He's still, I see people say he's still very angry over the radio at times. I think he's just very demanding for himself and for everyone around.
All the drivers are though. I don't think anybody really can. I don't understand how anyone can anyway. Is like look at how a driver reacts in the heat at the moment because they all do the same thing. Like as me as a Hamilton fan, if I complained about Max Verstappen getting shirty over the radio, like Hamilton does it all the time as well.
No. He crossed the line at 9, at 10, 11, 12.
Alonso does it. Alonso does it. George Russell
Who is this?
does it.
Yeah.
Lando Norris does it. Like all the popular drivers, Vettel does it. Everyone does it because when you're in the heat of the moment and adrenaline's rushing, like
Even Yuki does it.
no, he's the calmest of them all. He's yeah.
No, but it's but Yuki said he was very disappointed after this week, so he kept it friendly.
To be fair, actually, he did keep it quite calm this weekend after getting
Punted out by Daniel.
destruction derbied out of the race.
Yeah. Or this was the unoriginal topic, but I think we have to touch on Max Verstappen and his race performance, of course. Yeah. I can see him win the next 2 as well, but let's see how far that goes. But the actual topic I wanted to discuss was stewards.
Okay, yeah.
I see your face turning all reddish. Like, oh no.
I mean, I don't feel like they learned many lessons from last year so far this year, really. They've just been inconsistent. I mean, look at what was the comparison you made? It was Ricardo punting.
I said Daniel gets
compared to what George Russell did last year, last race.
So Russell punts off Sainz and gets 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Daniel punts off Yuki gets 10 seconds.
I suppose the only difference might be that they give a little bit of leniency for first lap, first corner incidents, but That feels unfair.
And that was my point. Then I think Leclerc goes out of the corner in Japan and cuts off and immediately gets a penalty.
Yeah.
I think that was a good call, right?
Yeah.
Although then we see Daniel taking two laps to do. We see sometimes being investigated after the race. And I think we saw Stroll getting how much for punting off Alonso, honestly, because that was a big mistake, I think, which has to be punched.
That was penalty.
He did not finish.
Two penalty points and 3 place grid position drop for the next race.
Yeah, so the 3 grids is a bit low, maybe. It's hard to find consistency in this, and I always. It's sometimes hard to it's late calls, early calls. It's so inconsistent, and that has to be fixed, I think. And what I don't get, honestly, is how can it be that this sport is worth 4.5 billion, something like that?
Yeah.
How come we not have more stewards being on top of it? Like every driver has an onboard steward. Every driver has.
It's not even just the stewards. Well, I mean, it's the steward, but it's this whole like interpretation of the rules and stuff, and like how you could take what looks from the outside to be 2 identical incidents, and you get completely different results as far as penalties and investigations and stuff go. I mean, I got a bit frustrated talking about it on this podcast the other week.
I know.
It's Perez at Silverstone. Like that one still bothers me quite a lot, because it's like they come into the season saying like, okay, last year there was a few things that got a bit out of hand, like forcing drivers off the track and what have you. We're going to really clamp down on that this year. So you have to be like a certain position alongside somebody to be deemed like entitled to the line and stuff like that, and to be given racing space and stuff like this, and the whole kind of all 4 wheels on the, or not all 4 wheels, but part of your car has to be on the track, which, to be fair, this year they have been a lot more strict on that, especially in things like qualifying, where if you go over the white line, that's it, you classed as off the track, your lap time's deleted. I like that this year, that's been kind of stuck to a lot more. But then there has been instances during races, and Perez, as an example, completely cut the corner of that chicane, gets no penalty for leaving the track, gets no penalty for, because he left the track, he had to come back onto it. He came back onto it somewhat dangerously, forced Leclerc off the track and went off the track himself again. There's no consistency, and it's frustrating. And the thing that annoys me the most about this really is that Formula One sells itself as being like the pinnacle of motorsport, and it can't even get its own rules correct sometimes, and certainly makes it. I mean, we are not casual viewers, are we? Really, we wouldn't be doing a podcast for a start if we were casual viewers, but we are.
Or watching all 3 screens to make sure you see all the lap time onboards.
I don't do that. I've said this before. You've basically got race control in your living room. You got your iPad, you got your laptop, you got your TV, you got everything going with all your different timing screens and stuff. I don't do that, but like I keep up to date on like Twitter and Reddit and various news websites and stuff like that. Like I follow it more than just tuning in on a Saturday for qualifying and Sunday for the race. And if your average viewer is coming in just to watch those 2 sessions on a weekend, because they're the ones that get televised, like mainstream.
How can you explain stuff?
Yeah, like that must be confusing to some casual viewers. And the sport shouldn't be confusing, and there shouldn't be grey areas, and rules shouldn't be open to interpretations. Like it just feels like there are aspects of Formula One that just feel a bit amateur, considering the net value of the sport, and whatever 4.5 billion or whatever it is you just said. I really don't know what it's worth, but
Oh, I don't get why, for example, Ricardo punts off a driver, gets punished for it. The driver can't presume. He gets 10 seconds. I think he should get a stop and go at least because he would drive away. He wasn't soft. The moment they gave the penalty, he knew he wouldn't actually suffer from it. He actually got driver of the day, which I think if you get a penalty, you're never allowed to be driver of the day, no matter who votes. But hey,
I don't think so either on that one, to be honest. Yeah, one thing with that penalty at the time, his penalty was already redundant. He got a 10-second penalty, didn't he? And he I can't remember exactly what position it was, but let's say it was 12th, and he'd punted. No, it might have been 11th. He'd punted Sonoda off. He was in 11th place. 12th place was like 11 seconds behind him. Well, what's the point of a 10-second penalty?
Exactly.
It's worth nothing.
And he doesn't care about penalty points.
No,
he's not even driving anymore.
I would rather see a drive-through penalty or some sort of forced stop go. Probably a drive-through is better than that, really, because stop.
Yeah,
I feel like they should be saved for something really, really harsh.
I think they should still give Stroll a stop and go penalty. Like next race he starts, first lap he has to take a stop and go because of what he did with Alonso.
The thing I'm not sure about on that is punishing.
I was
someone else. Oh, okay.
But I think that was one severe. I think that was
one. I mean,
I
think the grid penalty is fair. I think it should have been 5 places rather than 3. 3 doesn't feel like it.
You get 3 for a yellow flag ignoring during qualifying. So
yeah,
it's a little bit much. Anyways, well done, Max.
yeah, we're talking about Max.
Of course, I wanted to talk about stewards, but it's frustrating. We'll have to pay more attention to it next year. But I do think it has to be more consistent and faster. What topic do you have left? Or which word do you want to mention?
I was in two minds, actually. I originally wanted to talk about the different concepts that teams have adopted this year. Like, looking at the top 3 teams, they have completely different era kind of takes on this season. But actually, I want to talk about the technical directive that came in halfway through the season.
All right, the floor.
Yeah. I feel like Christian Horner played a blinder with that. he completely reverse blagged it and just like made it sound like it shouldn't be done. Argue against it, whatever. We don't want this. And then it comes into effect, and it's like, haha, you've made us faster.
No, I think they made everyone else slower, honestly.
Well, I think it did help Mercedes, it seems. I mean, Mercedes have obviously been doing a lot of other stuff with their car to figure it out from the start of the season.
They were the ones lobbying this, though.
They were. And maybe the technical directive has helped them a bit, but I think that also saying that doesn't maybe give full props to the team for actually figuring that car out a bit, because it was absolute trash at the start of the season, really, wasn't it?
That's very true. And hopefully we can get them to fight next year again.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they seem to be getting into a better place before the technical directive even kind of kicked in, and then
they had some absolute stinkers in between, though. This weekend we're going to fight for the win,
and then finishing like 5th.
So every time they say it now, like, yeah, okay, you know what? Maybe just show it first instead of saying it. But they did well in Mexico. So.
Yeah, doing well in America as well, yeah.
Or did Ferrari do not so well?
Ferrari got hammered by it seems. I mean, Ferrari seemed to be a little bit hit and miss here and there with their car before the technical directive, but I feel like that's like the biggest part of their problems recently. I mean, other than Carlos getting pole position at America and then immediately getting punted off for his efforts.
His Ford did not finish in lap 1 this season.
Yeah.
That's a lot, though. I think that's I know it's not a topic, right? But being crashing in lap 1 4 times when you're one of the top 4 drivers, generally speaking.
Can't afford to do that.
Riley really can't, right?
No. He had a really rough start to the season, didn't he? He had a lot of. I mean, he had some mistakes. He had some reliability issues. I mean, he had his car effectively just imploding on him, and that was Austria. No, yeah, that was Austria, wasn't it?
While in the lead. So yeah.
While in the lead. So he's had some bad luck, but he has also made some mistakes.
It's been a tough race.
He
But yeah,
can't.
technical directive, I think you are very much correct. Ferrari got hit the most by it. Red Bull took a blind, like, no,
Yeah.
I don't know. This is going to hurt. We don't want to do this. And then suddenly.
I kind of wish they hadn't done it now. I mean, I was a little bit. I think I was a little bit for it at the time, just because.
I wasn't.
No, you weren't. I definitely remember that. And now I wish they hadn't, because I feel like the championship has just become completely imbalanced and just entirely into Max. I mean, this isn't downplaying Max Verstappen, who, even if the only person you can compare him to really is his teammate, he is absolutely demolishing his teammate. He is clearly by far the fastest driver in that team, and he's got a good car, and he's the fastest driver in Formula One at the moment. Yeah, the technical directive just kind of just made the second half of the season just fizzle out. Like, Ferrari ended up nowhere. I mean, look at Spa, the first race after that directive kicked in, and even Perez was like 10 seconds up the road, or however far it was.
27-second lead, and then 17 seconds on Perez, and then 10 seconds on.
Yeah, like,
it was a bit
those
much.
Red Bulls they just came out swinging after the summer break and just absolutely destroyed the field. And other than America being a little bit close and Mexico being a little bit close, it's been kind of like that ever since, I suppose. I mean, Suzuka obviously was a massive lead. Mexico really actually was a massive lead once.
America as well, though, because once he passed Lewis, it was pretty much done, right?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. You were on the edge of your seat a little bit for that race, though, weren't you? You thought Max was going to struggle to catch Lewis, and I did not believe that for 1 second. And then, yeah, he just caught him, passed him, disappeared a little bit, and
yeah, I think this shows how much Max has also improved. Where I was before, he would have burned off his tires before he came to Lewis, and then Lewis drove away.
Yeah.
Previous years, and this year he just is consistently reeling him in, then gets near him, and then he goes all out, and then it's done. Which is, I think, shows confidence, shows faith in the car, but also shows how much mature he drives, generally speaking. I think that's a pretty impressive thing to have in your toolkit. Yeah. Lewis can do the same, right? Catch anyone with like 2/10 a lap, and then suddenly he's there, and then boom, 2 seconds away. Like, what happened there?
Yeah.
And then there's not many people that can do that. So I was impressed by that, and then that race I didn't expect it. So that's why he gets near, but then Lewis' tires are there, and then done. But apparently wasn't. For me, it doesn't matter. Of course, I'm quite happy with that result, but looking forward to next season. Could be a couple of good races, and I think we still got some good races still.
I think Brazil's going to be good. I mean, that's
if we get Brazil, though.
Well, yeah. What's going on with that? Because I know there's a lot of drama politically going on, and are they potentially going to cancel the race?
Well, there's now discussions going on. Is there an option to postpone it, or because it's not really safe? Maybe.
No, it might not be. I know.
And with all the roadblocks, it was actually hard getting a gear in already. So
yeah, a bit of unrest, isn't there? Yeah, I mean, it'd be a shame if it doesn't happen, because it's a great circuit, and
make sure Max doesn't get the record either.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
I don't think that's the biggest order. Safety's always first.
No, because if there's one less race and he wins that, well, how?
He actually wins it easier.
Yeah,
percentage gets higher. That's cool. Good shot.
Because he's already got. Well, he's tied. No, how many wins has he got now?
14.
14. So he's beaten the record of wins in the season. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but
definitely.
I think if we get Brazil, Brazil will be a good race. It usually
Abu
is.
Dhabi is always a great race, though.
Ish.
Well, it's a yeah. Okay, let's not talk about last year, maybe, but it's
Well,
always a
it's
good
not.
sight. It's good entertainment. It looks beautiful. There's good races, good fighting going on.
Yeah,
It has the potential to be, and with the changes last year to the turns, right, with the chicanes,
that made the
it's
race.
it's much
That
better.
made the circuit better. Yeah, and obviously they got the new regs this year that'll make following a lot easier.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about Abu Dhabi is the fact that the pack always seems to end up so spread out of that circuit. You get a lot of lapped cars, and you get
It's fast,
yeah.
Same with Monza usually. So
Yeah, which it kind of ruins it a bit because you often get the camera cut into like, oh, look at this amazing battle for 8th, 9th, and 10th. And it's like they're already a lap down. Like, it's not.
well, is it? I don't.
It's good fighting, but it's not super interesting. It's not like front of the pack racing. It's.
That's true. I think that's a topic for another show because I do think race direction, or camera race could be something we could definitely have a look at. I want to do one funny one maybe to end up with.
Okay, yeah.
Pierre Gasly.
Pierre Gasly.
He has been very angry in Japan. We spoke about that on the last show.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. He got 2 penalty points from that. Rightfully so. Yep. He's stacked up a little bit more penalties after after that one.
Yeah. What did he?
Also
he
got the last one for penalty for safety car infringement, leaving too many than 10 more
America,
than 10.
That was it. Yeah. That felt really harsh to me because.
But then this weekend, he also punted off, I think, Stroll, and he didn't get anything for that. Could have got a penalty for that one as well, right?
He got a 5-second penalty.
Oh, did he got? Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, he got a penalty for that as well. Yeah, 1 point, I think.
I don't know about penalty points, but he definitely got a time penalty during the race.
He's currently on 10 penalty points.
Yeah, and the first one doesn't expire until May next year.
That means 2 more penalty points he has and race ban.
Yeah.
Let's take that into consideration that he's driving his best Ocon next year.
Yeah.
For the first 6 races.
Yeah. Ocon's going to be able to use that as an opportunity to assert dominance, I think.
He should, right? I mean,
he should, yeah.
That's going to be one explosive duo, and I think that the fact that he's on the penalty stop pot now.
I am really hoping that doesn't end up being anticlimactic, and I don't know how that would happen. Whether it would be either Gasly just is like so much faster than Ocon, or he has a Ricciardo and he doesn't get on with the car and he ends up being like much slower than Ocon.
I'm so afraid that's what's going to happen.
That's what I'm really scared of.
And then career over.
Yeah. And Gasly doesn't deserve that. I mean, we've just kind of given him a bit of stick for his penalty points and stuff at the moment, but he is a good driver and he does deserve a seat in Formula One. And it would be a shame if he has a bad season next year and he effectively does a Ricciardo. But I'm somewhat hopeful that doesn't happen because I think he's a good enough driver not for that to happen. But then you could have said the same about Ricciardo and look how that panned out. So, yeah. I mean, he was obviously he was brilliant at Red Bull and he was doing great for Renault considering the Renault. It's just not panned out for him at McLaren. So, yeah, hopefully Gasly and Ocon have a nice tight fight.
Yeah, I remember some tight fights between him and Alonso this year, though. So I'm doubtful that will actually happen. Although Alonso is experienced enough not to get his water boiled by it. But I'm afraid in Gasly's current shape that might happen. In football, though, I also do, of course, a football podcast. What I would recommend is taking a yellow card before the final. Meaning, I would try to get 2 more penalty points before the season ends. Yeah. To skip out of Abu Dhabi, get on early holiday, and just start a fresh new year.
Just wipe someone out when it's out of the race.
Sorry.
Yeah. And how does that work? Does it actually reset your points, though, or do you continue?
It does, yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. You get the ban and then you start anew.
Okay, that's definitely what he needs to do then. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I would do.
Alpine are in a pretty tight fight in the Constructors' Championship, though, at least. So maybe he wants to.
If he takes out Daniel softly, he gets the penalty points. His new team gets played P4 in the championship. He starts there being a hero and with a clean sheet.
Well, they're in a fight with Haas actually, so it needs to wipe out.
Yeah, but he's thinking about Alpine, not about.
All right. Oh yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. We're just wiping out Ricardo.
He tried it with Stroll, but that didn't work. So
like something out of The Godfather. Yuki Tsunoda sends his regards. Smack.
Now you sleep with the fishes, but very softly because we don't want it to get hurt.
No,
I just want 2 penalty points, or he just goes on the radio and talks about the FIA. Yeah. Let's see how many points you can rack up by just talking.
What if he does a Maldonado and just blatantly jumps the start?
Actually,
was that? I want to say that was Spa, but I'm not sure that it was Spa. But he just like, I remember Charlie Whiting. There was cut to a replay of Charlie, and he was just sort of like,
when I was seeing
in complete bewilderment, and then just shaking his head in sheer disappointment.
Yeah, I could definitely. Oh, James, we are up to predictions for Brazil, mate.
Okay.
Podium plus one weird thing that's going to happen.
Podium. Hamilton, Max. Perez.
Normally, I would have to do this. Okay. Oh, okay.
Right. I'm gonna justify this. I'm saying Hamilton because look how fast that Mercedes was in those sectors at Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
About 80% of the track is like that at Interlagos. It's very like
start is like the final turn into turn 1 is of course really fast.
You've got a couple of like a pretty.
Then you got the slingshot, and then you got another fast long straight
through the chicane. But the Merc's pretty quick on the corners at the moment.
It's also very bumpy. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know how much altitude was playing into that at Mexico as well. To be fair, for the Mercedes, but also
I remember the last time that someone had a rocket ship at Brazil.
Yeah.
So that was Lewis Hamilton himself. He just had the race of his life. Started 20th, I think. He won the race.
He started dead last. He finished the sprint race in like
6th or something. 8th, something. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
And then he took a penalty after that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he jumped back and then won.
That's right. It was because of the rear wing thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he had to start at the back of the grid. Then he had to take his engine penalty, and he still won the race.
So I'm definitely seeing a Red Bull fly this weekend now. I'm not thinking. But okay, the weird thing though, you say Hamilton. I'll have to write this down for the next one. So you say that Hamilton, Max.
I'm saying Hamilton as well because, like, even
you want him to get his win.
Well, I want him to get his win, but even if you ignore what he did last year, like it is just historically a great circuit for him. He does well there, so
that's true. Max doesn't do bad either there though. So.
No.
Let's see.
There's a high chance Max is going to win it, but I want to keep the predictions interesting a little bit as well. So I'm going to, yeah.
That's a cool one.
I'm actually a little bit unsure about calling Perez third now because maybe Russell can beat him to third. But
okay, I'll do a different one. That's Max, Sainz, and Leclerc.
Oh, okay.
Which would be weird because if I was Ferrari, I would always let Leclerc finish above Sainz to actually outperform Perez, right, in the championship.
Yeah,
but I'm also unsure they would take away second place from Sainz. So I'm going to say Max, Sainz, Leclerc.
Is there any point in doing that now, though? Because
only for Leclerc's confidence.
Yeah, but there's no point really. They just want to be maximising their team points. Do they want to finish second in the championship? I don't know.
They might actually want to become third, but that's another discussion because you get a little bit more wind tunnel time.
Yeah,
6% something. So maybe you actually want to get in third now, anyway.
This is one thing I'm a little bit scared of with these rules is that the top teams don't need the money, so they might start throwing races to get more.
Well, if you don't become the champion, you don't care about second or third, I guess. And so Now you have to fight for third. Actually, Mercedes and Ferrari are just saying we actually don't want, either of us don't want to get a second place.
And you end up with a situation like this. It's completely off topic for a Formula One podcast, but in the NBA, because they get like lottery picks that they use to pick players during the draft, and the worse you finish, the more chance you have of having a higher pick. So being able to pick a decent player, and that is a massive problem in the NBA. Is that teams will actively spend a season just tanking to basically like take on bad contracts, take on bad players, have an absolutely atrocious roster, and just waste a season to get a lottery pick. And Formula One, with the way it's structured now, could end up in a similar situation where teams are actively like trying to not maximize a weekend so that they can finish lower in the standings and get more.
I don't think I don't
you.
think anyone cares about second. Like Ferrari doesn't care about second.
And the top teams have enough money that they don't need to worry about the money that comes from the.
No, they just want to win the championship for the brands and sponsors. But if you don't have that, then
the smaller teams might care. I mean, obviously, like looking at Alpine and McLaren, they're battling for a lot of money there for them, and even the teams lower down now, Williams and Haas and.
Well, they are right because AlphaTauri is at 35, Haas is at 36.
Yeah,
Aston Martin at 49, and for Alfa Romeo is at 53. So those are pretty cool things. And McLaren and Alpine are 153 and 146. So it's,
there's some close
those
fights.
are cool players.
And they probably are genuinely fighting because they want the money. But Mercedes and Ferrari don't need the money. So the
only thing is, something we're forgetting here, is that most of the personnel from teams have bonuses attached to the value of the constructor. So
there is a lot.
There's probably a lot of bonuses you can net if you're an employee of a Mercedes racing team if you get second over third. So although the team itself wouldn't really care and might want more wind tunnel time strategically, if you're working there, you probably want that second place. So
and there might be get out clauses where if the team's really bad, like I think drivers have that. If they're signing for a top team and 2 years later that team might be really bad, they might have a get out clause because the team's now trash effectively. So there could be some of that, especially with like some of the top like engineers and stuff, maybe. But
could be. What the weird thing is going to happen?
I hadn't actually thought about this.
Or the surprising thing, I should say.
There's going to be rain, and we're going to see the wet tires. I don't think we will. I don't think we'll see the wet tires after what we've just been saying about them.
Could see rain though. That's not out of the question.
It's not unlikely. It appears out of nowhere, doesn't it? In Interlagos, surrounded by hills.
So it could definitely. Okay, so you predict rain?
Not just rain, but full wets get used in race conditions. Because that seems highly unlikely, but maybe it does happen. Who knows?
You know what also very unlikely is? That Perez will... I can't say he wins this race because I said Max will win, but Perez will qualify on pole position.
No way. Well, I mean, that's the whole point of this, I suppose. Unlikely things that might happen.
Well, I said last week when it was like unlikely things to happen, I said both Alpine will blow up the race. It took him one, so I was halfway there.
Yeah.
So who knows? James, where can people find you, my friend?
On Twitter, my handle is at F1 in Focus James.
And we are at F1 in Focus Pod. It's that easy. Thank you so much for listening. So much for being on again.
Yeah.
Hopefully see you next week before the race or after the race. I think pre-race podcast.
I was just looking at the timings for that. We might be able to have time to do the podcast immediately after the race.
So we're fresh, full of adrenaline, and who knows what we're going to say.
Yeah.
When we are just stepping out of our seats.
It's entirely likely based on the stewards that we'll be discussing penalties that don't actually have a penalty yet.
Let's not go there, James. Not yet. See you next week, my friend. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Check it out. Give us a 5-star reviews. and see you next week.
See you next
Bye bye.